Hello and welcome. We're about to tackle a question that, let's be honest, we all have to think about at some point. What happens to our life's work, everything we've built, after we're gone? Think of this as creating a clear, simple roadmap through the world of wills, trusts, and what happens next.
It really makes you think, right? After all that time, all that hard work, who gets to make the final calls? Who makes sure that what you wanted to happen actually happens? This is exactly why planning is so important. It's really about making sure your voice is still heard, loud and clear, even when you can't be there to speak for yourself.
All right, so where do we even begin? Well, you start with the foundation. The very first step is putting the plan on paper. This is your instruction manual, the guide you leave behind for your family and for the legal system to follow.
So an estate plan is just that, your personal roadmap. And it's not just about who gets the house or the money. It's about your legacy, your family's security, and even your own healthcare choices. Now, the two most common tools for this job are wills and trusts. And while they might sound kind of the same, they work in very different ways. Okay, and this right here is the absolute key difference: probate. With a will, your estate almost always has to go through a public court process. It can take a long time, it can be expensive, and all the details become public record. A trust, on the other hand, is built for privacy. With a living trust, for instance, you control your assets while you're alive, and then your chosen trustee can distribute them privately when you're gone, often way more efficiently and without the court looking over their shoulder.
So really, these three documents are like the core of the whole plan. The will is absolutely essential, especially for naming a guardian for your kids. The living trust is the powerhouse for managing your property and skipping that probate process we just talked about. And the Advanced Healthcare Directive, well, that protects you, making sure your medical wishes are honored if you're ever unable to state them yourself.
So the plan is made, it's signed, it's ready to go. What happens next? Let's fast forward to the moment that plan actually has to be put into action. This is where we get into the nuts and bolts of administering the estate. If your estate plan is the roadmap, then the personal representative, or what most of us call the executor, is the driver. This is the person you trust, the one you name in your will, who then gets the court's official okay to get behind the wheel and carry out all of your instructions. It's a job with a ton of responsibility. And this lays out that probate journey pretty clearly. As you can see, it is definitely not a quick trip around the block. The representative has to go to court, then they have to track down and take control of everything you owned, pay off all the final bills, and only then, with the court's permission, can they finally pass on what's left to your loved ones. Now, a massive part of the representative's job is total and complete transparency. They can't just say they did something, they have to prove it. And that means tracking every single dollar, what came in and what went out.
And you've got to understand, this is not just some casual favor. It's a formal, legal, fiduciary duty. That's a fancy way of saying they are held to an incredibly high standard to protect and manage everything for one reason and one reason only, for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Any mistake can lead to serious legal trouble.
So this is what that transparency actually looks like. It's a simplified version of what's called a summary of account. Just think of it like a big balance sheet. See the charges? That's all the money coming in. The starting value plus any income, like stock dividends. Then you've got the credits. That's all the money going out for bills, expenses, and of course, distributions to the heirs. That final number, property on hand, is what's left. For anyone who's a beneficiary, this document is everything. It's the proof that every penny has been properly accounted for. But, life isn't always so neat and tidy. Even the best roadmaps can hit a detour. So what happens when someone disagrees with the directions? The short answer? Oh, absolutely. This is when things can move into the world of estate litigation. A will or a trust isn't automatically invincible. If someone has a legitimate legal reason to believe a document isn't valid, they can actually take it to court and try to have it thrown out. But here's the catch. You can't just waltz into court because you don't like what the will says. The court has a kind of gatekeeper, and its legal name is standing. You have to prove that you have a direct financial stake in what happens. Basically, you have to show the court you have skin in the game. So who gets past that gatekeeper? Usually, it's an heir, someone who would have inherited anyway if there wasn't a will, or a beneficiary who was named in this will, or maybe even a previous one. And the courts can be really specific. There was a case, for example, where the court decided that just being related wasn't enough to give someone standing in a particular dispute.
Now, if you do have standing, these are the typical reasons for a challenge. Lack of capacity is a big one. Was the person of sound mind? But the law says a medical diagnosis, like dementia, isn't enough by itself. You have to prove a direct link between their mental state and the actual decisions in the document. Or maybe it was undue influence. Was someone else pulling the strings so much that it wasn't the person's true wishes anymore? These are really serious claims, and courts look at them very, very carefully.
And if you're thinking about a challenge, you better be watching the clock. This number, 120 days, is a huge deal. In California, for example, once you get a formal notice about a trust, you generally have just 120 days to file a contest. If you miss that window, well, you could lose your right to challenge it forever.
All right, let's bring it home. We've reached the last leg of our journey. All the assets are accounted for, the bills are paid, any arguments are settled, and now it's finally time to deliver the legacy. This is basically the final checklist to close everything out. The representative gives the court one last report with all the accounting. Once the judge gives the green light, they can start transferring the assets, signing over deeds, cutting checks, and for every single thing they hand out, they have to get a signed receipt back. Those receipts are the proof they file with the court to show the job is done. And this right here, this is the official finish line. The court issues an order for final discharge. It's the final stamp of approval, saying the roadmap was followed correctly, the driver did their job, and their duties are now officially complete. The estate is closed. So after going through this whole journey, the planning, the process, the potential problems, it all comes back to that very first question we asked. A clear, well-thought-out plan is honestly one of the kindest things you can leave for your family. It gives them clarity when things are already incredibly difficult. So I'll leave you with this. Is your roadmap ready for the journey?